I've been building websites for the last 5 years. My agency, Omis Digital, has helped over 200 clients build websites they love and that actually brings them business. In this video, I want to share 7 key lessons I've learned in helping all of these people. And make sure to stick around to the end of the episode because any one of these can help grow your business, but put together, all 7 are going to make you a lot of money. Lesson number 1, steal like an artist. If you try to invent your entire website from scratch, you're going to waste tons of hours trying to figure everything out. Instead, I'm a huge believer that you should go to your competitors, other people in the industry, and look at what's actually working. Now, let's say you are launching a new gym in a new market. You could try to spend months figuring out what's going on, the best call to action, and all these different things to make your website work. Or you can look and see what is actually already working for people in your industry. Maybe you see they have a ton of different videos on their website of the workouts showing them what they're actually going to get into before booking a sort of sales call, and that's actually killing it for them. If you see these patterns among the companies in your industry, it's probably because that's already what's working, and so why wouldn't you just copy that to get the best results? So how to do this? A simple exercise I always recommend is to study the top 5 to 10 companies in your industry. So if you're that gym example, go to that market, ask around what gyms are doing the best, look at their website and take notes from that. You can look for patterns like what is their headline, what offer are they promoting, what call to actions do they have, what type of proof do they show. You can look at all of these resources to really understand what is actually working for this business. After taking these notes, you should have a way better idea how to actually build a website instead of doing everything from scratch and trying to guess what works. Lesson number 2, the text on your website is way more important than the design. What's important to keep in mind is that if you don't do this right and your messaging is unclear, even the best and most beautiful websites will not convert compared to someone who actually does nail this lesson. Even included in the name web design, you automatically think of design, the second part of those 2 words, and so you're thinking images, graphics, animations, colors, layouts, all these different things that actually have nothing to do with the text on your website. But in reality, a really good web designer knows the words are the most important thing on your website. It's what explains what you do, who it's for, why someone should choose you, why they should even care about your website, and that the graphics and all the other visuals are the things that's supporting the text, not replacing it. This has probably been one of the most important lessons at our agency because traditionally websites were built like you gather all the information from the client, you design a rough layout, then you would bring it into low fidelity design and high fidelity design, and then eventually you have a design that you take into development. And the words in that process kind of got lost maybe between low fidelity and high fidelity. But again, it's not a real rigid part of the process. Now, what we do is completely the opposite. We, after onboarding and doing the strategy with the client, we gather up all the copywriting and we put literally the layouts of what words are going to be on the website. And the reason that's important is because it allows us to make sure that everything that shows what the company does, their mission, their services, their team, all that sort of information does not get left out of the website, and that every single design element we add after, the animations, the images, the graphics, all of that is supporting the text, not vice versa. So how do you actually implement this for your business? When you're building a website, you should really try to focus on the copywriting first before getting into any sort of design or anything to do with the visual assets. I would ask yourself, what does your company exactly do? What is this website actually for? What problems do you solve? What services do you offer? All these different questions, and outline all of that first before worrying about the supporting graphics and images that you're going to add. All of that stuff is so much easier to come to once you know the words that they are supporting. Remember, the goal of your website is to communicate exactly what your company does, and visuals can support that, but it can't replace that. Lesson number 3, spend 80% of your time optimizing the opening section of your website. And yes, that means that if you have 100 hours of development, you should be spending about 80 hours on the opening section of your website. There's a few main reasons for this. One, it's literally the first thing that most people see. It's at the very top of your website, and it's the most important real estate on your page. What this usually includes is the headline, a short explanation of what you do, maybe some supporting images or graphics, a visual, something like that, and your call to action, which is the most important part of the website because you're literally directing people, let's say if you want people to fill out a contact form, how to go through the process and become a customer. There's this quote I always bring up from David Ogilvy, which for those who don't know is one of the largest advertising agencies in the world. According to Zippia, Ogilvy now does about $5.9 billion a year in annual revenue. And to quote David Ogilvy, On the average, 5 times as many people read the headline as reading the body copy. When you have written your headline, you've spent 80 cents of your advertising dollar. And so what's kind of interesting about that is that most people spend all of their time optimizing every little section across the website. If you have 20 pages, they'll probably spend 99% of their time in every other section besides that opening section, when rather most people will probably not get to the other sections, especially the other pages of your website. If you've opened up any of your analytics before, you'll see that 95% of people go to the home page and then maybe they click to the contact page, and all those supporting pages in the middle barely get visited, yet that is where most people spend their time. And I completely understand that. You want to make sure every single part of your website is optimized. And so if you have that pull of 100 hours to actually get something done, you're going to want to spend time everywhere making sure everything is perfect. But the most important thing is the above the fold. And so for those who don't know, above the fold is kind of the same sort of deal. It's when in a newspaper, you can only read things that were literally above the newspaper, like that was folded for the newspaper. And so above the fold here is anything that when they first go to the website, what shows up on the screen first before clicking anywhere, that is above the fold. And so that is where 80% of your advertising dollar is going to. How to actually do this the right way. You want to make sure that no matter how you develop your hero section or the opening section, that it explains exactly what you do, has great direction on how to take the next step, and any other supporting elements for that. So maybe a description, images, things like that. But the goal is that you want to make sure people don't have to scroll around to understand what you do. Some of the worst things that I see every single day is people will create a website and you go to the website, it says, welcome to XYZ company. That is literally so dumb, because if people are going to have to scroll to learn what you do, you're going to lose 80% of the traffic, when if they were looking for a pool cleaning company and you said that in the hero section, you might have actually secured all of those customers. So as a key takeaway, within maybe a few seconds, maybe 3 seconds, you want people to understand exactly what you do and the steps to take if they're interested in going further in the process. If you do this sort of thing, your website is going to have a dramatic increase in conversion. Real quick, if this all sounds like a lot and you wish someone could just go into your business and build this all for you on your website, you're in luck. Go to omisdigital.com, fill out our contact form, and our team will reach out in 24 hours or less. You have my guarantee. Lesson number 4, you need way more proof. Something I always tell the clients is that people don't believe what you say about the company, it's what other people say about your company. So using that logic, the more proof you show, the easier it is for someone to believe you actually can do what you say you can do. To keep it simple, I define proof as anything that's going to validate your claim that you make on your website. So as an example, let's say you are a plastic surgeon in Dallas. If you want to claim that you are the best plastic surgeon in Dallas, then you'd probably have a ton of before and after pictures of people that got great results through surgery. Or you might display an award saying best surgeon in Dallas that a local company awarded you with in 2025. And you also might have video testimonials of clients who had a great experience, sharing how much they enjoyed the office visit and everything like that. Other general examples of proof could be case studies on your website, reviews from customers, logos of companies you worked with, certifications of things you've gotten done. I mentioned video testimonials, media features or press mentions. If you had a huge interview with a local media outlet, feature that on your website. That is super key. The other thing to keep in mind is that not all proof is equal. I view it as a spectrum of least strong to most strong proof. Now, as an example that's pretty intuitive to most people, if you had a live video of a client saying how much they loved your service versus a text with maybe an image of that client that's static, you're going to believe the video a lot more. Another super important lever to pull on is the recency of your proof. Now, as an example, if you are that plastic surgeon and you were doing before and after pictures from 1999 versus 2025 and it's 2026, you can assume that they're going to believe it a lot more because of how recent that proof is. And make sure to stay to the end of the episode because we are going to relate back to that lesson in greater detail. See, what most companies do wrong is they're building their website and they have a testimonial section that they have 1 or 2 things on and they say that's enough. If the goal of your website, if you're that plastic surgeon, is to convince people that you're actually great at what you do, wouldn't it be more compelling if you had, 30, 40 pieces of information proving that you could do that with videos and images rather than just 2? So it's important to keep in mind, you almost want to have a nearly unlimited source of proof when you're able to. Now, in terms of the implementation, I always say you should add proof everywhere that it naturally fits in the website. Spread testimonials across your entire website if you want to. Add logos everywhere. Do it so that as long as it doesn't break the design and it's just adding to what you can do and to prove what you can do, I would put that as many places all over the website. The main goal of this is that for someone to come to the website and think, wow, all these people got great results, I can get great results too. Lesson number 5, do not ignore having a strong design system. If you ignore building this early, you're going to waste thousands of dollars and dozens of hours repairing this and all these inconsistencies as you grow your business and as your website scales. To put simply, here's a definition from Figma, which is the $15 billion design tool that nearly every single design team across the world uses. Also, Figma, feel free to sponsor this video. At its core, a design system is a set of building blocks and standards that help keep the look and feel of products and experiences consistent. Think of it as a blueprint, offering a unified language and structured framework that guides teams through the complex process of creating digital products. A design system can assist in reducing the amount of time spent recreating elements and patterns while designing and building products and interfaces at scale. That was a lot. What that simply means is that things like the fonts you use, the colors you choose, the buttons, the spacing, the layouts, the images, the headlines, all these things are unified within one system that you put together. And so that when you're actually building out these websites, all the pages look consistent on the back end, all the coding is consistent. Without a strong design system, you'll start to see some of these things happen across a website. One page might have a blue button, one might have a red button, another page might have a green one, headlines are different sizes, spacing is inconsistent, and this might seem like a small detail, but over time this becomes extremely messy and hard to maintain. But when you have a really good design system, every page follows the same structure and visual rules, which makes it super professional, but also on a development standpoint, super easy to scale pages as you grow. Let's say SEO is really important for your business. Then if you're adding pages a few times a month, if you have a really inconsistent design system, then you're going to probably pay double or triple just for all of the development fees that are going to go on in creating these pages. And so in implementation, the easiest way to do this is define a few core elements before you actually start building the website. First, define your core colors. Most websites usually have somewhere between 2 and 4 primary colors. Then I would define your typography. I would choose 1 or 2 fonts, maybe 3 that you shuffle between for your H1, H2, H3 paragraph text. I would define your components. So these are things like buttons, cards, contact forms, testimonials, navigation menus, things like that. And once these components are designed once, you can reuse them across the entire website super easily. Doing this right keeps your website super clean, super consistent, and much easier to scale as your business grows. Lesson number 6, confusion is killing your sales. You have to understand that a confused prospect does not buy. If someone lands on your website and doesn't immediately understand what you do, they're going to leave. And when they leave, they usually just go to your next competitor on Google. This is also super common amongst beginner designers and maybe business owners who aren't familiar as much with building websites. But when people build their first website, they try to impress their visitors. It makes sense, but they add too much information. They do too many different things. They use really complicated wording. They use tons of different graphics. They have, complicated designs, tons of animations, poor performance, all these different things that do the opposite of keeping your website simple and easy to understand. And they're just preventing prospects from seamlessly going through the process and becoming a customer. So let's give an example of your own behavior online. Let's say that you have the objective of building a pool in your backyard. And so you go to Google, you look up pool companies in Dallas, Texas. Now, if you go to one of the first results and you're not really sure if they build pools in Dallas, or they might not have, warranties that you're looking for, all these other things, you're probably just going to click away and go to the competitor's website that really simply explains the things you're looking for. And that pool company might have been the perfect service for you, but they didn't communicate that in your website. And so they lost sales for a perfectly good thing that they deserved. And do you think in this example that if you couldn't figure out what the company did, you're going to spend minutes trying to figure out what this company does, their mission? No, you're just going to go to another competitor, the second or third result that came up, and they're probably going to explain in clear English exactly what they do and all the information that you need. Another super common mistake amongst modern design teams is that they have this trying to look cool sort of problem. Now, when you think of a really modern or well-designed website, you might think of all these cool different animations going on. The navigation might creatively be in the bottom instead of the top. They might have weirdly spaced fonts, all these different things that might look cool but are not intuitive to the user. Now, unfortunately, from the data we've seen, that is actually going to drop conversion, not increase conversion. So you can create really cool looking websites, but if they're hard to use and your website is to drive sales or any sort of conversion from it, it's not going to be beneficial to your business. Most people are used to certain patterns. As an example, the navigation being on the top, the hamburger menu being on the top right or left on mobile, clear layouts, simple buttons that are contrasting colors to what's around it. And so when you break these sort of patterns, visitors, especially those that aren't really tech savvy or web designers, are not going to be able to use your website, and they're going to click off. So to avoid confusing prospects, there's a few key things I always recommend to clients. Use simple language. I talk about this at length in tons of videos, but you want to make sure to drop your reading level as low as possible while still keeping the value of your point. If you have one website that's in scholarly English and one website in third grade reading level, the one that's at third grade reading level will convert so much higher. And I know that's against a lot of what we're taught growing up, to use fancy language, to sound fancy, but at the end of the day, it's not going to help your business grow. Another super important thing is to use obvious call to action buttons. And if you want an entire video like this, go to our channel and check that out, because I made I think it was a 15-minute long video discussing this at length. In general, you just want to make sure that you're following common sense website patterns and not breaking too far off the mold, in the sense that you're going to break that user experience. I would test your website like a customer would. I would also recommend, if you're able to, get a small focus group together of, it could be customers, other different people, and have them test your website. See how long it takes them to go from each section to another, and really see how it works when it's not just you. Because a really common thing is that if you have built the website, you know how to use it, you spend so much time with it. But someone who's just going to your website off an advertisement or social media organic or whatever the case may be, they're not going to spend the time to understand how the navigation works and all this stuff that you set up that's too fancy. So you want to make sure they're using simple, common website patterns. Because remember, the goal of your website is not to impress other designers who are looking at this. It's to actually impress prospects enough to become customers. The seventh and last lesson is that your website is never done. One of the most common things we see among clients is that they will build their website once and never touch it again. And this could be the difference of 5 years, 10 years. We've seen 15 years recently where they haven't made one edit to their website. As you can imagine, there's going to be a host of issues that happen in this scenario. The first thing to note is that you should always be testing your website, maybe every day, but at least once a week, and if not, once a month. If you haven't touched your website in, let's say, 10 to 15 years, this can create a lot of issues over time. Some super common examples is that the design becomes outdated itself. The design trends of 10, 15 years ago are nothing like the designs now. Also, the ability to create animations and all these sort of modern elements and graphics wasn't even really possible 15 years ago without expensive design teams and revisions and all these sorts of things. And the other most common thing is that the information on your website is inaccurate. Imagine you're a consulting firm and you refer people to your website. They go there and the lead partners and managing directors at your consulting firm no longer work there. They're reaching out to people that don't actually work at that company. Do you think that's going to paint you in a professional light? The other thing along that note is that your tracking and data plugins might not be working. So people might be filling out the forms and some of that more basic stuff, but you might not be getting data or accurate data on the trends of what's going on with your website. You might find out way late that the about page is broken. You're getting 0 visitors on that, but because your tracking software is down, you never really knew. And one thing that's even worse than that is that, especially if you're a small company, say you're a few employees, the site could go down without anyone noticing. And depending on your type of company, that can go from really bad to absolutely catastrophic for your business. I have a simple expression I use when I'm talking to clients about their websites. And I say that most websites fall into one of 3 categories. They are bad, broken, or old. So a simple question I always ask is, does your website fall into one of those categories? When I say broken, for example, is the functionality on your website even working? When I say bad, is the design on your website up to date with the modern trends that look appealing compared to the other websites in your industry? When I say old, have you not touched your website in 15 years? None of those things can lead to a great website that drives results. The other super important framework to understand is that when you launch your website, especially for the first time, it is really just an educated guess. You might have done really strong research, had great designers, but essentially you're making assumptions on what messaging works, what layouts convert, and what customers respond to. That's why great websites are always evolving. If you look at the Apple website, they change it like every day, every month, or whatever. They're always being tested, they're always being improved. And so over time, if you're going to implement this, I would always be testing your website consistently for performance. An easy tool that I recommend all the time is pagespeed.web.dev. It's from Google. Flash up a picture of it here, and it easily tells you about your website's performance, accessibility, best practices in SEO. It's a great tool we use all the time. It will give you a score out of 100, and you should really be scoring as high as you can in every single one of those categories. There are many other tools out there, but this is probably the simplest and most commonly used. Beyond that, I recommend regularly auditing your website for content and good functionality and making sure nothing is broken. It also sounds super obvious, but I would go through like a customer would and try to fill out your contact form, test buttons, go through the process and see, is it really easy to actually go through and become a customer, or is it pretty difficult? And that will probably inform a lot of your decisions when trying to optimize your website. Just remember that a great website isn't something you build once, it's something that is continuously improved over time. For those who don't know, my goal is to build the #1 web design agency. And if you or a business owner you know is looking for website services, go to our website, omisdigital.com, fill out that form, and we'll contact you in 24 hours or less. We're going to be posting more videos like this, so hopefully you got a lot of value. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.